and so we should just, all you should really have to do is figure out a way to keep your stuff in register. We call this in printmaking. So I've taken one of my pieces that I want to print on top of that has the registration marks on it, and I've placed my stencils over the top, and I've used the registration marks on those to go ahead and line that up. So I have both of them set here. I have the red one kind of ready to flop over on that, and I have the blue one ready to flop over on that. So the big thing is just to kind of have a system that makes sense. I've also made these little guide marks where I can put the next pieces in so that they'll kind of line up in the right places. So if I'm going to print the blue ones, I probably want to go ahead and print all of them all at once. So what you want to do is you want to try to, again, everything you can do to kind of keep things stable and from moving around on you. So I'm just going to put a piece of tape right here just to keep this the stencil right where it's supposed to, so it doesn't shift around on me anywhere. And then you want to get your paint or your ink. So I'm going to use that screen printing ink that your teachers have given you, and we're going to, you want to make sure that you don't slather this on too thick. So we're going to just kind of try to like get the level off here. You can mix any color you want, obviously. So we're going to try to make sure there's not too much. And then we're just going to go ahead and brush this on. So sometimes it helps if you hold down with your finger like this a little bit, and we're just going to kind of like, we're going to brush this on there. And we're just stenciling, right? So you kind of want to stencil out from the edges into the center of your image. And so we'll just go over all the spots where there's supposed to be imagery coming through. And so if it doesn't work, you can kind of like stamp it in there like this. Sometimes sponging it on helps a lot. You can also use a smaller brush if you want to, just to get in there and get the details in there. So, and again, the more like kind of transparency you mix into your ink, the more likely you are to have the other color kind of show through the way you want it to. So this is acrylic paint, so when we're done with it, it will dry permanently. It just becomes a plastic polymer, and then you're able to just keep, you put as many layers over the top of it as you want to. So this can be a little different than the gouache paint that you used for other projects maybe in our class. So, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and work on stenciling this, and then we'll, when we're done with it here, we'll peel it off and we'll see how it looks. So we've been discovering that the best way to print this is to make sure that you kind of just lightly stamp the paint on with a sponge. So if you want to make sure you take your time to like register these so that the marks are actually lined up perfectly. This one that I did here, if you take a look, you can see how this line around the ear didn't line up even close because I didn't do a very good job of making sure that the registration marks lined up. So before you print each one, you want to make sure you're kind of positioning it well, and then you just take your sponge, and you don't want the sponge like sopping wet with paint. You just want it kind of like dryish, and just kind of, we're just going to stamp it on there. And it works best when the force comes like straight down instead of trying to slide it across. So again, just keep your paint, keep your ink sort of semi-moist over here. You don't want it sopping wet with water. And then we'll just kind of stamp it on there. And that's the best way to get this stuff to print well when you're using paint. Again, you could use other materials if you wanted to, like charcoal or something like that. And it's kind of the same process where you just want to stamp it through basically so that the force comes directly down on the stencil instead of sliding around underneath it and all that kind of thing. So see if I can get this one to line up. Hopefully the ear and neck line will line up a little bit better this time. And this is again just one of those projects where you want to print a lot of extras and see if you can learn what you need to learn by doing it. So prepare yourself for it to go a little sideways maybe, and have to work on some stuff and fix it and adjust it. And again, yeah, the more consistent you can be to printing, the better your edition of prints is going to look. So once I think I kind of got it all the way I wanted to, I can flip it back and check it. Oh, it looks much better than this one that we did at first, where everything just kind of squished all over the place and stuck to everything. Just kind of got underneath the stencil in places it's not supposed to. So much better to stamp down from the top. The ear's a little better lined up. I can probably still spend some more time trying to figure that out. So if you have an important place in your image that you're trying to get, perfect registration for. You might want to spend a little bit of extra time on that. But you can see it gives you kind of a nice, soft, kind of interesting surface. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and print the red layer over the top of this to see what happens when these two colors kind of interact with each other. So I'm just going to do the same thing I did before, which is kind of get my brush sort of sponge here a little bit, kind of just damp, but again, I'm not trying to soak it. And then you just, again, just want to hit down on top of it from the top. Sometimes I'll keep my finger here and just kind of just sort of lightly hold it over the top. And this will be like a tricky one because we have all this tiny little type that I had to cut out by hand, right? So let's see how I can do with that. And sometimes I just like to hold it down with my finger here and just kind of keep it from bouncing around too much. But and again, you want to really be careful about your registration marks and make sure you're getting all these layers lined up depending on how much overlap there was supposed to be and how tight your registration is supposed to be. So I have a lot of these little tiny stars in here I'm going to have to try to make sure I hit. So I'm going to stamp through this thing and I'll just kind of double check everything. So. And again, you can tell the bigger, bolder shapes are sure a lot easier to print than the tiny little things that just have little tiny marks in them or really small little lines, things like that. So there might be something to think about as you're building your project, you know, that you might want to stick with the big flat shapes instead of trying to do a whole lot of little tiny shapes and details and things like that. Like maybe put that in a digital file instead of the hand stencil. So. And again, we're always trying to work within the limitations of whatever media that we're given. So this is just kind of the way that a hand stenciled piece works. If we were screen printing this or something, we could get all those tiny little marks and details in there. But since we're stuck with this, this is it. So now I'm ready to go. I flipped this one up like this, and we can see how it printed. So I've got my multiple colors on there. Again, the hand printed stuff just has a whole different kind of feeling and flavor to it than digitally printed stuff. So the idea here is that you now work your magic and do your best to make an addition of 3 prints that match. You can see where the colors overlap, they change tone, like the two complements here kind of cancel each other out. We get a little bit of a gray color instead of a pure hue. So see what you can do, have fun.